Hey guys, welcome back to another edition of ATMSP Live. This is the show where, well, we talk about being an MSP, and most of the time it's about the non-technical side of being an MSP. Now, tonight we have a special guest. Actually, we have two, which is great. We have Tim and Shanna from Compliance Scorecard, and we're going to be talking about something that is really top of mind for me lately, because compliance is kind of the new cybersecurity, right? It's got all those security components to it, but it's also got all the additional things that come with regulations and laws and requirements and auditing and all of these things that we all love to do, right? Well, no, we don't. But our clients are now required to have it. So what Tim and Shanna are going to walk us through tonight is compliance as a service, and actually give us a practical demo of what that would look like for FTC safeguards. And if you don't know, FTC safeguards basically apply to anyone in the finance space. And that could include CPAs, accountants, but it also includes anybody who does in-house financing, from like a mattress company to an automobile dealership. So it's going to be exciting. Buckle up, because we're going to start in just a few minutes. Let's be honest, tracking Microsoft 365 licenses and Azure consumption manually is a profit killer. If you're still using spreadsheets to reconcile your billing, you're likely leaving money on the table every single month. That's where Sync 365 comes in. No more missed renewals, no more oops on prorated charges, and zero manual data entry. Sync 365 captures those mid-month changes automatically, ensuring your margins stay exactly where they belong. Stop the billing chaos and start recovering that lost revenue today. Head over to atmsp.link/sync365 to get started. That's atmsp.link/sync365. Oh yeah, I almost forgot. We did stand up a brand new allthingsmsp.com website. So now you can go and submit your favorite guest idea, your favorite topic, or simply ask us a question that you want us to cover either on the podcast or on the live stream. And if you're a vendor and you want information on our sponsorship packages here at All Things MSP, please go ahead and go to the sponsor page. You can check that out and see the packages there. And if you want more information, go ahead and fill out the form and let us know. There's also a brand new pricing calculator that I built for the website to help MSPs determine the pricing for their services. Now, it is beta, okay? So please keep that in mind. It's beta, but you can go ahead and use it. Tell me what's wrong with it. Use that feedback form to let me know. It's allthingsmsp.com/calculator. Let me know. Level up your email domain security and deliverability. Reduce business email compromise and reel in that pesky email phishing. Make DMARC a new revenue stream for your MSP. Becoming a managed service provider partner with Easy DMARC is a great opportunity for your business to boost sales and decrease risk. Your customers need DMARC. Your job is to let them know that their email domain might be at risk. Find out more today at atmsp.link/EasyDMARC. That's atmsp.link/EasyDMARC. Hey there, All Things MSP crew. Welcome back to an All Things MSP Live. And we have some special guests with us tonight. We have Tim and Shanna from Compliance Scorecard. Hey guys, how you doing?
Hello. Happy whatever the heck day of the week it is. I don't even know. Too busy snow blowing every 5 seconds.
Yeah, you guys did get dumped on a little bit, didn't you?
A wee bit. I think one of my friends down in Florida texted me a little bit ago. I haven't heard from him. He's like, "Are you guys alive?" He's like, "I haven't seen you on LinkedIn or whatever lately." I'm like, "Yeah, I got like 5 feet of snow in my yard. I'm just trying to unbury myself."
Yeah, I've had friends and colleagues just telling me that all they've been doing is digging out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, as soon as we saw grass, we got dumped on again, and it was like, oh.
That's terrible. I actually got stuck in Virginia one time in one, I forget what blizzard it was, but there was probably 2 feet to 3 feet of snow in that one. And I was just visiting. Like I was, and in fact, I was staying in some dorm rooms at a college up there. And yeah, it was just awful. It took me days to get out. So we're not talking about snow blowing as a service tonight, although a lot of people are probably making some money at that this week.
Would that be sassy? Snow? I can't even say it.
Sabas? I don't know. I don't know. But it is, funny enough, it is a as a service night because after our show, you can join Marvin B's show where he's doing website as a service tonight. So check that out at 8 o'clock. But Tim, Shanna, why don't you guys go ahead and take turns introducing yourselves? And then Tim, if you would just give us a little bit of a, the elevator pitch for Compliance Scorecard for anybody who doesn't know.
Sure. Go ahead, Shanna.
I am Shanna Utgard, and I'm an account executive at Compliance Scorecard, and I like to consider myself a compliance therapist.
Whoa. Yeah, because we all need a little therapy after too many acronyms all day long. And just ask the dyslexic guy what framework and what acronym. This will be fun.
For sure.
Hello, everybody. Tim Golden, founder and CEO of Compliance Scorecard, where we help your MSP have the risk conversation with your customers through our compliance scorecards. And now, appropriately, backed by a little bit of AI stuff in our version 10. While you can still use the platform without it, we're just going to help you get there a little faster and a little rounder. And if you're not satisfied, go talk to Shanna. She'll therapize you.
And I noticed that, Shanna, you have some experience in compliance. You've done a lot in compliance in your career. And how does Compliance Scorecard kind of help those people that need that compliance structure like you've worked with in the past?
Yeah, so a lot of it, not just the compliance side of things too. One of the biggest pain points that I hear a lot from MSPs is the governance and the risk side of things as well. They're kind of like the underlooked letters out of the GRC acronym. One of the biggest conversations that I have with folks is their clients are getting the cyber liability insurance questionnaires, or some third party is saying, do you do all of these things? And their clients are going, I think my MSP does those things. And they're either just pencil whipping, yep. Or they're coming to the MSP, which, in one way is the better scenario. They're coming and saying, hey, do you do all of these things? But then the MSP, there's two problems with that. Number one is that takes up a lot of time. But if every client has several of those a year and they're going through and answering all of those questions. So it can be a time suck, and a lot of MSPs are like, how do I monetize this? But the other thing is the fact that you're even having that question, the fact that the clients don't know what you do or you don't do for them. And they're looking at that thing going, I don't know if all of this stuff is included. The delineation of responsibility is extremely important, especially with the amount of cyber attacks that happen nowadays. And, MSPs getting sued, and at the end of the day, MSPs always want to do what's right for their clients, but they've got to make some money. They've got to monetize it, turn it into a service.
And I love that point about governance and risk, right? Because you don't have to have a compliance requirement in order to have governance and risk. Everybody's going to have a certain level of risk.
Exactly. Yeah. And that's why we say have the risk conversation with your customer. Because, you've heard me say this a lot, Eric, which is, compliance is a big, scary word, but it doesn't have to be, right? It's a rule book. It's a playbook. It's the referee for cybersecurity. Yeah. Hey, thanks, Keith. Yeah, you are smart, my friend. And thanks for that. And it's not a big, scary word, Keith. It's a rule book. It's a playbook. It gives you, think of it this way. All right. Maybe you play football, well, football's over. Maybe it's basketball now, Olympic sport. I don't know. But you got the referees on the sideline throwing flags if you're kind of going off the rails. That's what compliance can do for you. Stay in the game, have some rule books, something to follow. It's not a big. Now, we make it into this, oh, not compliant, ooh, fines. Like, it doesn't have to be big and scary. It just gives you a roadmap to actually talk about business outcomes with your client.
Right. And that's what a lot of MSPs are trying to move towards these days, is rather than just being a help desk outsourced IT provider, they're trying to drive business outcomes for their clients, because that's where an MSP can really provide value to their clients. So, we promised we would talk about compliance as a service tonight, so we probably ought to do that. What is your definition of compliance as a service? How do you guys see that coming together?
Go ahead, Shanna.
Well, this is where a lot of I hate the name compliance as a service. This is just my own personal hill I will die on, because that sounds like done for you compliance, which is not the case. It is a done with you type thing. And one of the big traps that a lot of MSPs fall into is, so they identify a need and the first thought is like, let's go fix it. Let's go fix it. And Tim, what do we call those people?
Yeah, the implementers.
The implementers.
Yeah.
Click the button, install the tool, do the thing. What compliance as a service really is that the guidance to help them make those kind of risk decisions, whether that's under a framework like FTC safeguards or CMMC or whatever that might be, or it's just their cyber liability insurance. Guiding them through those decisions. And the way that I define compliance is doing the things that a third party tells you you're supposed to be doing and being able to prove it, because those are two very different things. So whether that's third party is a big regulatory board, the HIPAA police, the federal government, or, whoever that might be, doing the things that they tell you got to do, and being able to prove it. Like, do you have the documentation? Can that stand up to a, solid sniff test?
Yeah, I like that definition.
I do like it as well. And, Shanna, we talk a lot about this, Shanna and I, when we're talking with MSPs. And we kind of see two sort of schools of thought. Oh my God, we don't have backup. We don't have conditional access. We don't have bunny rabbit hole and down this and that. Those are the implementers, right? And a lot of us IT folks, that's where we started, right? Like clicky buttons, blinky lights, right? Like fixing stuff. It's who and what we are, right? But a lot of that, as we're starting to see, is starting to get commoditized. And it's still a very important aspect of, hey, stuff needs to get fixed. And here's the lesson I learned when we started building out a compliance offering way back in 2007. I just went and turned all that crap on and it pissed everybody off. I had to actually start with why and move the conversation to a facilitator role, to a trusted advisor role. And while both roles are important, it's not my job to make the decision on whether or not they want backup. We can present that to them. We can talk about the business outcomes and the importance of backup, 2FA, SOC SIM SOAR, tool, blinky light. But until they make that decision, I'm not going to go turn the crap on. It's their risk. We are the facilitators of that. That's why when we talk about governance, we talk about the 4A's, that second A of authorization is so important. Having that conversation with your customer, presenting them with the risks, their risks, and allowing them to make decisions. I mean, imagine, Eric, imagine this. Instead of, my printer's broke, go fix it, you get the phone call of, hey, we're thinking about buying a printer. Do you hear the nuance in those two different tones and two different conversations? Imagine your MSP being that hey, we're thinking about X. Can you help us? As opposed to screaming why it's broken.
Well, and what's interesting to me about that, Tim, is that that's the way it used to be when I got started in this business. We were more consultants than outsourced help desk
Yep.
because computers hadn't been commoditized yet.
Mm-hmm.
IT had not been commoditized yet. And so people were calling up because they had no idea what to
Yeah.
do, or how to buy a computer even. And so it's almost like it's come full circle now, and we're getting back into that mode of, okay, I've got these technology tools, computers, iPads, whatever, but how do I leverage them to drive the business? And compliance is a part of that.
Yeah, and Keith, I hate the as a service. I get it. Us industry folk, coin these terms, and they just kind of stick. We hear VCSO all the time. We hear as a service all the time. The reality is we are in the service industry. Heck,
Mhm.
we could say bartending as a service because they're in the service industry. We could say coffee as a service. That's CAS for you. However it is that we label it, it's more important about what are we delivering,
Yeah.
right? And I think that's where we're going to kind of dive into a little bit later here is what is the service component? What does that look like? So Eric, I'll ask you when you think of, and I'll put your question back on you. When you think of compliance as an offering, oh wait, maybe we should do compliance as an offering, websites as an offering. Maybe we should just change it to an O, CAAO.
But then how do you say it? Is it cow?
There we go.
I'm not sure that one would go well.
Yeah, service offering. When I ask you, what do you think of? What does this look like?
So I think what it looks like is enabling the client to be compliant, to put all of the pieces in place to be able to be compliant. But, the biggest problem with the clients is they don't understand what they need. They don't understand the risk. They don't understand what needs to be in place to govern the systems. And so that's where, the MSP needs to step in. But there's so much around that I think MSPs need a lot of help with building that offering and having the tools to maintain it, because there's a lot of paperwork and documentation and stuff like that has to be managed and maintained, right? So it's a lot of work that a lot of MSPs probably don't have the experience to do. And so that's why they need to be able to, have somebody like Compliance Scorecard do this. But I think it's a huge opportunity because compliance is only growing, right? The requirements are just getting more widespread. We mentioned FTC, and we're going to talk about that in a little more detail later. This is a huge opportunity for MSPs, and this is the direction it's going.
Yeah, 2 years ago, if I brought the word compliance up in front of an MSP or with one of their end customers, they'd run.
Yeah. Well, it's
And
been a bad word for so long.
It has been. And so, I want to pull on a thread that you said, be compliant. And I think this has been a major, misnomer. No one is compliant per se. They move towards becoming a more compliant posture in their business. If we think about even just the ISO, SOC 2, CMMC, like FedRAMP, and the list goes on and on, those are like point in time or a small block of window. It's not a business practice and a business outcome and an ethos that we just do every day, every day, every day. Now, where the tables turn, and this is the opportunity for the MSP, I guarantee you every business, for the most part, and I hate to use absolutes. I hate to use the word guarantee because you know me well enough. I live in black and white. Every business has something on their wall about equal opportunity, sexual harassment, employee handbook, all of those HR things
Mm-hmm.
that have been forced down their throat that it's just what they do, right? Doesn't matter. Like if it's Johnny's Bakery with 10 people in it, they have those things plastered in the break room.
Mm-hmm.
They understand that in the HR world, so they're HR compliant. It's no different in cyber, with the exception of there's bigger risk over there. There's bigger risk in that.
Or at least equal, because a lawsuit from an HR non-compliance can be just as devastating as a ransomware event.
Mm-hmm. Or OSHA or any of that. So the opportunity here for the MSP is to relate the conversation back to the business outcomes in the terms that they understand. And if you can't figure out that Johnny's Donut needs to understand how to, make donuts, talk about the HR component. They'll understand that. If you can't speak donut factory or you can't speak veterinary shop, speak HR. Everybody, it's kind of universal.
Yeah, I mean, we all have to hang those posters, right? In our break room or wherever the employees clock in, or wherever they congregate, right?
Mm-hmm.
To make sure that they're visible, because there's a governance component to that, there's a risk component to that, and there's a compliance component to it as well. Now, we talked about outcomes and being that trusted advisor to partners or to clients. And Keith had a really good point. How about the phone call? Your last idea is making us money, so be at our next board meeting with more. I think that's the ideal position that an MSP wants to be in. And I think that, risk kind of falls in that same category. It's like, hey, you solved us from this. What else can we do to keep us, or minimize our risk?
Okay. I'm going to let Shanna chime in.
There was one thing that you mentioned about like it's a lot of work. I kind of challenge that a little bit. Eric, have you ever had to help a client through some kind of like audit, or somebody comes in and all of a sudden it's that immediate drop everything administrative scramble to get them exactly what they need in that current moment? Have you ever had to deal with that?
Oh, absolutely.
And it's an all hands on deck for, everybody at the client organization. For the MSP, you're pulling techs away from tickets in order to go dig up all of this evidence that you may or may not have. And then you've got to explain if you don't have it. That kind of like all out administrative scramble for the point in time compliance. I love real life analogies. That's like liposuction. Like it's one big event that has you down for recovery for a couple of weeks. At the end of it, you'll be a little bit skinnier, right? So it's that like big moment in time, a lot of all hands on deck, the surgeon and the anesthesiologist and the nurses and everybody else, versus an ongoing maintained compliance program where you're already gathering that information and that evidence. You've already gone through the policies. You're just reviewing them every year. Is more like going to the gym a couple times a week so you don't get in the point of needing to go have the liposuction surgery and have the, everybody pump the brakes, screech, like everybody needs to come help gather evidence, and nobody's doing anything other than just being able to demonstrate that we are compliant at this point in time. And then, we get out of surgery and we're eating bonbons on the couch again after we've had our liposuction. And then next year we're in the same situation again.
So I think the perception is that it's a lot of work. And I think that's one of the things that can be debunked, with things like compliance scorecard, where now there are platforms for MSPs to be able to, facilitate this, to use Tim's word, much easier than trying to do it manually.
I appreciate the plug. And let's face it, when an MSP tries to think about how do we operationalize this, how do we do this work at scale, yeah, platforms can help, compliance scorecard can help, but really you need to have the people in the process. Shanna, you said it's a lot of work. They hear that a lot. The reality is it doesn't have to be. In fact, we started working with our peer group. We have a peer group. We spent several months back and forth kind of iterating through what the hell is compliance as a service. Well, you know what? It's not the clicky button, blinky light, configure a thing, buy a tool. That is a part of it, but it's not that. When we sat and went through this exercise with our peer group, and we're starting to write it out and kind of building it on, and like nobody in our space could define it. And about 10 minutes into like defining it, where did we all go? Oh, we need a GRC, we need a SOC, we need a SIM, we need a SOAR, we need a backup, we need a this. Insurance is asking for that tool and this tool and that. And it was like, wait a minute. We all had the aha moment in the peer group with like, that's the results of the facilitation of the risk conversation. That's the work. Yeah, that's the hard part. But you know what? That's project work. That's billable work. That's a different side of the same coin. We kind of landed in that facilitation route. And we happen to pick FTC safeguards because you would be surprised the number of businesses in your MSP that it applies to. Have financial records, cha-ching. Keith, you might not do this, Keith. I see you in chat. Others that are listening or commenting. Do you offer like hardware as a service? Do you like provide devices to your clients that they lease? And then do you do like a financial background check on those clients on leasing them hardware or doing hardware as a service? Guess what? FTC applies to you.
So let's talk about that, Tim. And Shanna, let's talk about how you might roll an FTC compliance offering.
Hold on, I gotta fix my camera because where it is on my screen, it's literally blocking everybody's head and it's driving me nuts. Does that work? Is that better? You can see me okay?
It looks fine. For me, you've looked fine the entire time.
I know, but my camera is dead set in the middle of the screen and it's driving me batty. So, I mean, Shanna, I know you've got some ideas. We've kind of started to build a little program. If you want to kind of touch base on that, maybe we can pull up some stuff around the FTC, but I'll give you an opportunity to pop in. So there you go, Keith. Lease the entire system wrapped in services. So Keith, something to consider if you're doing financial checks and you have financial information around those customers, you should dig into 16 CFR 314.4, i.e. FTC safeguards, because you might be considered a covered entity in that regard. Hey, where'd our little heads go? We all disappeared.
They're all down in the corner.
Oh, there we are. I can't see it because my camera's now blocking it. But
it's so that I can make the FTC document larger.
Well, I mean, I can explain all of this. Shanna, do you want to tap a little bit into it and then I can get into some gory details?
Why don't you run through the first part of this? Because, I mean, I'm obviously familiar with it, but I wasn't part of the team when we made it all.
So as we built this, we wanted to kind of build a workflow that we could do repeatable for every customer. We started with FTC safeguards because as the group of MSPs and the diversity that we had in our peer group, we all felt, it's obtainable. It's not 1,029 controls and 853. It's not 300. It's obtainable. It's really good business practice. And it will help set you up for things like cyber insurance and so on and so forth, right? A lot of people do talk about the CIS controls. It doesn't really matter what framework you're using, what list, what controls, as long as you're aligning to something. That's the first A in the govern function. As long as you're following or aligning something, a playbook, right? Like we talked about, the rule book. We picked FTC because it seemed to have kind of worked through a lot of different MSP verticals, number one. Number two, yeah, CMMC, a lot of stuff going on over there. ISO, SOC 2, blah, blah, blah. The thought with the FTC safeguards, at least, I mean, I get a lot of their communications several times a day. They're the ones working with the Department of Justice, whistleblower, all of that fun stuff, actually going after organizations. Let's not get all political and all that baloney, but they're the ones that are actually pushing forward not just legislation, but lawsuits. So it had meat, in our opinion. It's good business practice, in our opinion, and it's not overwhelming and it's obtainable. So we started with FTC safeguards, and we built on that facilitation workflow, right? Kind of separating the conversation, business outcome, and risks from the configuring MFA, backups, the work, kind of doing those two separately. And so from a very high level, we wanted to be able to build out a monthly program. MSPs sell MRR. And what did that look like? Now, I know I'm doing a lot of talking, Erica or Shannon. I'll give you a second to ask any questions you might have.
Well, I think that, something like this is what MSPs need because so many of them don't have a compliance background. So, Shanna, how does a program like this help the average MSP?
Well, it gives a framework. As techie nerds, we love having some kind of like structure and documentation. So something like this is going to give you like a general guideline to follow, but obviously there's a little bit of flexibility within that. With a lot of these compliance as a service offerings, they're generally set up roughly like in the same kind of way. It's like going to the doctor. If you walked into the doctor and before you started going through any symptoms or they did any kind of tests, if the doctor said, hey, take 2 of these tonight and you've got surgery next Thursday, you'd probably be like, whoa, wait a minute. Don't you want to find out what's wrong with me first? So this is a way for you to go through whatever that framework is, FTC safeguards in this case, but whether that's CIS or NIST or something big and beefy like CMMC, starting off with that assessment, figuring out where they stand currently, where they have gaps and holes, and then coming up with a plan on how to go about remediating that eventually, because that's not the concern right off of the bat. So there's generally that same kind of like understand where they're at, find the gaps, review those with them, and help them decide what to do about those things. So it's kind of like a good rinse and repeat structure. In this first phase of everything, it's the problem awareness situation. Like, how do we go to market with this? Specifically in this FTC safeguards one, a lot of people don't realize that they have these types of compliance requirements. Probably this week alone, I've had at least 5 potential partners say, oh, well, we just work with a lot of small businesses, some couple local lawyers and accountants. And it's like, whoa, 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 whoa. That applies. And then in the packaging and structure offer here, so we've got some recommendations on the Kickstart, on the package side of things, doing a one-time project essentially for them, which is that gap assessment, POAM, plan of actions and milestones, and then delivery of basically like an executive summary or a risk findings report. So we gave kind of a suggested price range in the document. This is one of those things where your clients, your market. These are recommendations. If you know that without a doubt you drop a number like this on one of your clients and their heads are absolutely going to explode, that's one thing. If you know that you're in a market that can tolerate a little bit more price wise. Obviously there's some flexibility within that. And then the ongoing side of things, because this isn't just a one and done liposuction program. This is, yes, that project component kind of has a beginning, a middle, and an end, and some very clearly defined deliverables. But the rest of this really needs to be positioned as a program, because those compliance needs never really stop. So we want to make sure that the policies are rolled out to every new employee that comes on board, that they're reviewed on a regular basis and approved, and any changes are made. There's continuous monitoring of those controls and the artifacts that go along with them to make sure that they're still doing the thing that they told somebody that they were doing and can still prove it. And then just, ongoing reporting and review. The last A of our 4 A's of governance: alignment, authorization, adoption, assessment. So continuing to review that on a regular basis. That's where the work gets really easy. That's kind of the maintenance phase. You've gone through the big project side of things. So, we can have that monthly charge be a little bit lower, and then that ongoing maintenance of their compliance program.
Okay, because you're automating some of that, I would imagine.
Well, where appropriate. So if you scroll down a little bit, I know there's a lot to this document. You dropped the Google Doc in it, but I made it a Google Doc so y'all could have it, right? I didn't have to worry about SharePoint and dumb permissions or whatever. Take my swipe file. What's the TikTok thing I'm supposed to say? DM me, comment here for the swipe file. Anyhow, think of this as a phased approach. As Shanna talked about, phase 0, how are we going to package this? How are we going to price this? Are we going to do a good, better, best? That's internally for you. How are we going to package, price, and go to market? As we scroll a little bit through the document here, actually building the plan. And that was the purpose for tonight, was to give you a plan. Scroll. Stop. There you go. Thanks. So giving you a plan, right? As Shanna said, do an initial gap assessment, bring in the right people, have that conversation. FTC safeguards, what's this, 43 something controls? Yes, no, yes, no, yes, no, yes, no, yes, no. And then you present that to your customer, right? Building out this program, half an hour per client, maybe around 2 hours a month. 1 hour doing some work, doing some discovery, understanding what's going on, building that facilitation, and then 45 minutes to an hour with your customer. I know, how do we get a seat at the table? All of those other things I don't want to kind of solve for you today, but I do want to be able to say the program, do an assessment, rapid gap, figure out where they are. And then you present them and you get a risk register in front of them. For those of you that don't know what a risk register is, it is a listing of the findings that they get to say yes or no. It's not that hard. Yeah. Hey, we found that you're not doing this. You are doing that, but if you did this little tweak, it'd get better, right? Good, better, best. And let that customer make their risk decisions. Mitigate, accept, transfer, avoid, defer. Yay. In other words, yes, go fix it, or no, don't go fix it. And I know we as the MSPs, we're the technical people. Of course, we want them to fix stuff. We want them to be better, be safer. But at the end of the day, it's their decision. They're the ones that have to authorize this stuff. Now, maybe, yes, contract-wise, and this is something that we've been learning through by delivering this with MSPs, tattling on yourself. What great rapport would that bring for you and your client if you actually tattled on yourself? Oh my God, we forgot to roll out MDR on a couple of devices. Oh my goodness, we only enrolled 3 out of the 10 people in security awareness training. Yeah, it's okay to admit that you're human and you might have missed a step in onboarding. But being able to go to your client and be like, hey, we found this gap. Don't worry about it. It's part of your service that you're already paying for. We're just going to go implement it for you. No extra cost, no whatever. We missed it. I get it. We're human. Crap happens. That tattling on yourself, to some degree, of course, obviously blatantly obvious things you probably want to go fix. But that builds that trust factor with your customer. Hey, I screwed up, but I'm going to go fix it. No cost to you. So doing that risk register and working with them to make those decisions, every time they say yes, you now get a plan of action, you build out a milestone, you do your project work, and you go fix it. Implement the other side of the coin. So Eric, if you want to pull us all up here, we can banter for a minute or two, because I know we want to probably end here in about 10 minutes. Is this kind of resonating? Is this making sense on go do an assessment, find some gaps, let them make decisions, go fix the gaps, wash, rinse, repeat, wash, rinse, repeat?
Yeah, but I think it's the roadmap that they've been looking for. And I think doing something like this for something that is so wide reaching as FTC and kind of misunderstood, right? Because a lot of people don't understand that.
So like car dealerships, right? No.
They're almost guaranteed to have at least one client that has to comply with FTC.
We wrote a blog post on this. It's actually 13 different verticals that it applies to. I'm going to go find the article for you.
Okay, you can find that and go ahead and post it in the chat, or send it over to me and I'll post it. Now, Shanna, when it comes to these things, a lot of times the risk, who holds the risk, is an important part of this. And there's only so much you can do and attest to for your client. At some point, your client has to be the one ultimately responsible. And I think we've kind of talked about that a little bit tonight. How do you kind of draw that line?
Shared responsibility matrix, RACI matrices.
Big scary words.
That is one of, in my personal opinion, the risk register and the shared responsibility matrix, to me, are the two most valuable parts of the compliance scorecard platform. And I don't just say this as an employee of Compliance Scorecard. I say this as somebody who worked at an MSP as a VCIO of compliance and actually did all of this work with clients. When there wasn't a document like this to take me through everything, it took me 6 months to figure out how to structure this offer, how to, cover our butts, deliver something to our clients, how to price it and package it. I fell down and skinned my knees a lot throughout that process. But the shared responsibility matrix side of things, I see people all the time talking about like, oh, well, if you go through this with your client and they don't want to do it, make sure that they sign a declination of services document, or make sure that you get it in an email. I got a better idea. How about let's go through control by control within a certain framework, even if that's just CIS IG1, or if that's just their cyber liability insurance questionnaire, because we know most people have those, and go through each of those questions that are being asked and say, okay, who does this? Do I do this on my own? Is it a tool that I have in my MSP tool belt that accomplishes this? Is this something that you're responsible for? Is this something that we both have a shared responsibility for? And being able to really clearly, item by item, outline who is responsible for what. We could have a third party access control provider that does, the badge scans and everything else to get into the building. It may sit on my network as the MSP and I manage that network. But at the end of the day, the client has to lock the doors. Right. So it's all shared responsibility. So being able to go item by item down through that and have a defensible documentation of, I went through this with every single one of my clients and they are well aware. They can't go back and go, well, I never read my master services agreement. I had no idea whether or not that was included. But don't you do everything tech for me? You're my guy. I call you. You're really protecting yourself against that, because not only are clients going to do that, but if you ever find yourself in court, you're going to go up against a judge or a jury or people who are going to be making decisions on that matter, who probably also think that the outsourced IT person does everything. So going through and saying, I do this, you do that, a tool accomplishes this for us. And then having that documentation of any of those risks that they decide that they do not want to, and sometimes there's a valid reason for that, or sometimes there might be like almost a mitigating control, but like it's not quite, and they feel comfortable with that risk. Most of the time, I totally agree with Keith. If a client's saying no to something and you're going, oh my God, how can you accept this risk? Like you should not be accepting this. The problem might be with you. You're probably not explaining it very well. Because if it's an absolute no-brainer where you're like, you're going to lose everything you've worked so hard for if this happens, try explaining it a different way.
I'm sorry. Did you say RACI, shared responsibility matrix?
Yes.
I don't know. Eric, there might be something you can show if you're willing.
You want me to bring that up?
RACI matrix. Shared responsibility matrix. Is it you? Is it the customer? Is it a tool? RACI matrix. We have all of that for you. All baked in the platform, ready for you to be able to kind of work through that kind of stuff. So yeah, the ability to understand who is responsible, who is informed, who is accountable, all the different components of a RACI matrix or a shared responsibility matrix. So I'll stop that here for you. But yes, I would agree with Shanna on accountability. It's not finger pointing, it's ownership.
Right.
And I think therein lies the crux that I have been saying for 3 years. Until you can start shifting that risk back to the customer where it belongs, you, as the MSP, own it. Doesn't matter how many times you tell them, or a lawyer, or this, or whatever. As we're seeing, our good friend Eric Tildes and Bradley Gross will tell you, MSPs are getting sucked into lawsuits because there's no clear delineation of who owns what. And unless you're building an SRM, shared responsibility, or a RACI matrix, and assigning that ownership and allowing that customer to make their decisions, you own it.
Yeah.
Especially important in co-managed situations as well.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, because I can imagine that gets even more complex.
You can't do CMMC without a shared responsibility matrix, period.
Yeah.
End of story. Minus 1,000 on your Spurs score. Done. So, back to how do we build this as a repeatable offering? I need to make a graphic for this. It's probably like the millionth time I've said that. Pick a thing, align to a thing. FTC, SOC 2, CIA, I don't care what framework, follow a playbook. People way smarter than us came up with some rules and some regulations and some guidelines of better business outcomes. Pick one. I don't give a shit what one you pick. Sorry, I don't care what one you pick. Pick a framework. Do an assessment. Find the gaps. Present them to your customer and help them make informed business decisions. Wash, rinse, repeat. Wash, rinse, repeat. That's it.
And I want to say, this document, the FTC document that we shared earlier and that we put up on the screen earlier, you go through month by month as to how an MSP should actually implement this and roll it out. So it is fairly, complete in really giving them that guidance and that roadmap on how to roll this out to at least one of their customers, as we said before, because they
internally
probably
do it on yourself.
Yeah,
you're your first best client.
Eating the dog food, right?
And by the way, when you do it on yourself, you're now set up to do it for every customer at scale. Of course, with tools or technology or people and process, but we Eric, when was or Shanna, either of you, when was the first time you ever heard the phrase people, process, technology?
It had to be a Wayne Selk talk of some kind. For me.
That concept is something that, or let me throw another one out, documented repeatable process. You know, at MSPs, that's how we gain efficiency.
Mm-hmm.
We find onboarding, offboarding, setting up a setting up a laptop. Heck, I could go back 15 years ago when I was working with the church and the youth group, and we would run a Saturday PC clinic. Open up the doors, have the youth group, and let the congregation come in with their messed up, and let me tell you, some messed up computers. What did we do? Well, back then, CC cleaner, malware bites, the 5 or 6 things, take the case apart, blow out the dust. We had a checklist. We had a documented, repeatable process. It's the same kind of thing of what you're doing in a compliance coffee as a service offering.
Now I'm jonesing for coffee.
Just, yeah.
You could go coffee ice
I'm
cream. That's my time friendly.
I'm on my last cup of the day. So
Now, as we start to wrap this up, you guys did have a pretty big announcement, a pretty big version release in the last week or so. Tell me more about that, because I know that you were kind of hesitant to throw a common 2-letter acronym into the product early on.
yeah, well, you know me, I've been writing code for so long, and I don't trust things that I can't actually understand or see what's going on and rip apart and put back together. And I actually watched AI fail us miserably with 400,000 lines of code and almost blew up the entire platform. Thank goodness it was all internally, and we have a proper SDLC. Anyways, I was a little cautious, and then I got super like, hell no. But it's gotten better, right? And we have always erred on the side of doing what's right, not what's popular. I'm not going to slap an AI chat bot on there and say, we are AI powered. No. So working with our team and other subject matter experts, and day in and day out of beating this stuff up since, I don't know, May, June, I can't even think that far back. Building out a program where MSPs have full control, auditable results on how AI can help them in their work. Simple. So Eric, I'll ask you this. You use GPT or Copilot or Claude or something, right?
A variety of, yes.
Yeah. And so you'll go to it and you'll ask it a question, and it'll give you a response. And you're like, no, that's not what I wanted. And it'll give you a response. And you'll be like, no, change this one. And then it'll give you and you play this ping pong back and forth until you get a result that you want. So let me ask you, Eric, and this is what I ask every one of our MSPs. In that kind of process, would you agree the better the context, the better the prompt, the better the result?
Absolutely.
Good, because that is what we built, an entire prompting engine that you have full control over, editing the prompt, taking the context of your tools, your industries, your client, your stack, your people, context of you, the MSP, and your customer. Take all of that context, put it together in battle-tested prompts that I've spent 5 months beating up on, literally day after day, and then use that context to do a thing. Generate a policy, generate a report, generate a risk register, generate a do work. And you know what? If you don't like the way it works, change the prompt.
Yeah.
It's no longer black box. You can fully govern, fully prove, and fully show an auditor, this is what we used, this is the context that it used, and this is the outcome, and then how we reviewed it to human approve it.
Yep.
Full context edited. Just
awesome.
Like you do every day.
Go ahead, Tim. Sorry.
No, I was just going to say, just like you do every day when you're interacting with your chats and your whatever, But now it's a compliance and risk and context engine for you in the ability to do work.
Awesome. Well, I really do appreciate you guys being here tonight. Shanna, if somebody wants to get in contact with you to, look into building a compliance as a service offering, how do they do that?
They can give me a call. They can fill out any of the forms online. Those all go to me, or they can email me at Shanna, SHANNA, at compliancescorecard.com. They can find me on LinkedIn. They can find me anywhere.
Awesome. Again, thank you guys so much for being here. For the rest of the audience who's here, please check out Uncle Marv's live stream. Happens right after this one at 8:00. He's doing website as a service tonight. So thank you very much for joining us tonight, and we will see you in the next one. Hey, thanks for watching All Things MSP Live. You can reach me, Eric Anthony, at eric@allthingsmsp.com. If you're a guest, if you're a vendor, if you want to sponsor the show, let me know.